And hello everyone, welcome to this week's video tutorial, which will be a continuation of opening principles in Xiangqi. This is based on a book written by Grandmaster Liu Dianzhong, and we have covered some of the fundamentals in the past two videos. Before we continue, in the previous video we went over the efficiency of the moves, never to move the same piece too many times, and never ever recklessly advance material. And for defense, examples were shown whereby moving the advisor or elephant too early in the game or in the wrong manner would have adverse outcomes on the situation on the board. And today we will continue with the next few points in this short video tutorial. Again, there are many examples that were cited in the Grandmaster books, all of which were very practical, and all these examples I wished I had learned or come into contact with when I was learning Xiangqi as a beginner many years ago. I'm but an amateur player, but I believe the material presented in this book is very useful, and most importantly it's very practical and should help your everyday play. And I will go over the next few points in detail as I've done in the previous video. Thank you. The next point, or the next lesson to be learned, would be never to fall in love with your pawns in the Xiangqi opening. Now this would be quite against the nature of the international chess player, because pawns or pawn structures are critical in international chess, but in Xiangqi, because of the bigger board, the extra space, 90 intersections versus 64 squares, it is harder for you to form a pawn formation to hinder the enemy pieces. So while pawns are still moved and are still very important in Xiangqi, they are not used in the same manner or treated in the same manner as in international chess. Now, what do you mean by never fall in love with your pawns in the opening phase of Xiangqi? The Grandmaster gave an example of a very famous counter by black. It's called the blind dog counter, Xiangqi. Okay, to begin with, red would play p7+1 for the pawn opening, or angel's pawn, 仙人指路 in Chinese, and black would counter with the blind dog counter, or 下眼狗. Now, with p7+1, red will adopt a wait-and-see attitude to the game, and most probably would develop his left horse as a proper horse, and the rest of the material or the formation that he would eventually use would be could be directed more accurately against whatever black might come into contact. Now, usually after p7+1 was played, black would usually counter with c2=3 for the thundering cannon, or push a pawn of his own, or push an elephant, or push a horse, etc. All these are considered orthodox counters. However, in the blind dog counter, which is considered to be an unorthodox counter, black would immediately choose to sacrifice his pawn. Now, it will be natural and it will be alright for red to capture the pawn. After capturing the pawn, black would continue with e3+5. This would threaten to capture the red pawn that had just crossed the river. Now, this is where red's test would come. This would be the first incidence of black sounding red out in the game. So what should red do with the pawn, especially a pawn that has crossed the river so early in the game? If the pawn were able to advance forward or move to even better intersections, it would become a very glaring threat. However, in this situation, red should not play p7+1 as planned, although it would seem very natural for red to do so, because if p7+1 were played, red would have fallen into black's trap. Black would continue to play h2+4 for the elephant eye horse, threatening to capture the red pawn. and forcing red to decide to sacrifice the pawn, which he had already used up three moves to make. Or would he move this pawn to safety? And usually beginners would play p7 equals to 6 because it would seem to be a natural move to make, whereby the pawn will now be threatening to capture black central pawn and advance as planned. However, at this time, black would play e1 equals to 3. Now, if we were to go back to the first video, the principles listed, we can see that at this point in time, all of red's major pieces have not been developed, and black was ready or prepared to capture the red elephant with e3 plus 9. And after capturing e3 plus 9, black could gain material with r3 equals to 2. So, and as for the red pawn that has just crossed the river, although it is at a menacing position, it cannot traverse the board because the horse would have been protected both intersections. Neither can the pawn advance because the cannon would have protected the cannon rank. So at this point in time, the pawn would basically be useless. So red would have fallen into black's opening threat, and at this point in time, black would have seized the initiative from red and be prepared to start to attack. So this is what is meant by never falling in love with the pawns so early in the game. So a short review: pawn opening, blind dot counter, red captures, which is okay, and black would start to move e3 plus 5. Now p7 plus 1 would be a mistake. Black would continue to develop his right flank as planned, forcing the pawn to move and allowing the black chariot an open line so early in the game. So as mentioned earlier, p7 plus 1 was okay. So what should be the correct move to make for red at this point in time after black played e3 plus 5? Now, as we can see, advancing the pawn was a mistake, so the correct move or the suggested move would be to sacrifice the pawn and play e7 plus 5 instead. So this would thrust black into a dilemma instead, because if black captured the pawn at this point in time, black's formation would be in a disarray, and black would be forced to use up one move later on in the game to deal with the issue of the elephant at this point in time. And the elephant being at the riverbank is so early in the game would not be a good idea, because it will reveal fundamental flaws in the position or formation of black, whatever he might adopt later on. So as for red would now have prepared to move his left horse and develop his major material. And red will be faster in moving in developing his left chariot, and again this would be to red's favor also. So red would have increased his initiative in this opening variation. So a short review again: pawn opening, blind dot counter. Now instead of pushing the pawn forward, red should simply sacrifice it and forcing black into a dilemma whether to capture it or not, and red would gain initiative. This section can be also considered to be an extension of the first point mentioned last week about the efficiency of the moves. So in this variation, on this example, sacrificing a pawn or using a pawn by both colors would show that if it were used correctly, it would, and the pawn were able to, the rest of the moves were able to be played efficiently. Either red or black could extend his initiative or gain an extra advantage in the opening phase. The next lesson to be learned would be a very important one, and in my humble opinion, perhaps the most important lesson in Xiangqi. never ever give up tempo. Never ever give tempo in order to gain material. This issue has been debated for a long time, and so far the golden standard would be to preserve your tempo instead of gaining material. So the example given in the book was this situation. So far, this is considered to be an orthodox variation, whereby red would attack with the 5-7 cannons, and black would use the screen house defense. According to the Grandmaster, this was an actual game played. At this point in time, usually R4 -3 to protect the pawn is played. This will slow the development of the black pieces, and red will still enjoy a certain form of advantage. However, in the variation given here, red chose to go for material gains with p7 + 1. So in the match, red would push p7 + 1 also, threatening to capture the red chariot, forcing the red chariot to attack, forcing the black cannon to defend, and moving the red chariot, retreating the red chariot back to the cross riverbank rank. So far it would seem that black would have gained some form of initiative in this situation. So black continues with p7 + 1, forcing the red horse to retreat to the centroid, and black would retreat his horse also to threaten to capture the red chariot on the riverbank rank, forcing the chariot to move again, and black would choose to sacrifice his horse boldly by capturing the pawn, which red did accept the sacrifice. But because red had accepted the sacrifice, black would now have the initiative on the board, although he would be down a horse. Now at this point in time, we can see that both the black pawns that have crossed the river will now be a terrifying entity for red. It will be a very big threat. The red horse that had retreated to the centroid would have trouble developing, because it cannot move here, neither can it move here because the pawn will advance. So all the major pieces except for the black chariot here would have been moved and developed, while red's formation on left flank, the chariot and the horse had not been moved, and the congestion in this flank would be a major cause of concern for red later on in the situation. So at this point in time, giving up, capturing or gaining an extra horse would not seem to be a good bargain for red at this point in time. So although red had gained material, the loss in tempo was too great, because the red chariot had been forced to advance, retreat, advance, retreat, and advance again. So while black took the opportunity to adjust his formation. So this is one very good example of never accepting material gains if you were required to compensate with tempo. The next point to learn would be another also very important lesson about space. It will be concerned about space. You need space to develop your material on the board, and it would be best if your formation was not congested. So try to steer away from congested positions. Now, speaking of congested positions, the Grandmaster introduced another unorthodox opening to explain why this would a congested opening or congested formation would not be a good idea. So central cannon. Now one would expect black to play the usually one would expect black to play c8 equals to 6 for the sandwich horse defense. However, in this variation, black chose to play p7 + 1 to limit the movement of the red horse, which is okay theoretically. However, this would force black to lag behind in development of his left flank. So red would play r1 equals to 2, and in this variation, black would use the parrot cannons. The Mandarin duck cannons, Yuan Yang Pao. Yuan Yang would be the Chinese for Mandarin duck. Sorry. So r9 equals to 2 would protect the black cannon, and the idea behind, or the main idea behind this move would be to allow the other black cannon to retreat to the third rank and attack along the third rank, usually targeting the red chariot. So in this variation, the Grandmaster chose to continue with c8 equals to 2, the main idea of which was to threaten to capture the black chariot as planned, because the black chariot was now in a congested position. Now, as a prophylactic measure, p9 plus 1 will be played, and it will be at this time that red would continue to attack the central file with c1 equals p5 plus 1. Now, black would now retreat his cannon as planned, as mentioned earlier, and red would choose to attack the black horse. So if black did not play c8 equals to 6, it would be a trade of material, and the red pieces would still be better developed. So black would choose to protect his other horse with this cannon with h8 plus 7. Now it would be at this time that red will continue his attack on the central file. So at this point in time, two variations were analyzed. The first would be black playing c2 equals to 5, because the central file was relatively weak and vulnerable, and the other would be to play c2 equals to 8, which would be one of the main strategies or main purposes of playing the Mandarin duck cannons. So in the first variation, c2 equals to 5 were played. Red would continue with p5 equals to 6 to prevent red from attacking his cannon. r1 equals to 2 to develop the chariot, proper horse. Now red would not be afraid of trading chariots, because if black played this move, red will continue with h7 plus 5 and be prepared to sacrifice his horse to gain momentum in the situation. And usually after sacrificing the horse, red would have a very big advantage in the ensuing game. So after p5 plus 1, if black did not choose to play c2 equals to 5 and chose to continue with c2 equals to 8, red will attack the central file with p5 plus 1, which should be a check, forcing the advisor to move, another check, and red would simply capture the black cannon without fear, and it will be a trade of one chariot for two of black's pieces. Now, although this would not be advised usually in the opening stages of the game, it will be to red's advantage, because the cannon will now be applying a skewer to black's horse and chariot on black's cannon rank, and the chariot would be in fact getting in the way of the black cannon. So although there were three major pieces already concentrated on one side of the board, it was very congested, and black would have a big headache trying to develop his material later on. Now if black tried to chase the cannon away, the pawn would be ready to protect, and red could take his time to develop his material, which would have a lot of space along the central files to attack. So red would have a significant advantage at this point in time. Now this is one of the reasons why the Mandarin duck cannons is seldom seen in actual play nowadays. You might get to see a game played using the Mandarin duck cannons perhaps once every few years in major tournaments, but overall it has been condemned as a bad opening or an unorthodox opening because of the reasons mentioned above. And then perhaps the greatest reason would be the lack of space or the degree of congestion that would develop when black tried to move his pieces. So a short review: central cannon, advancing the pawn, and protecting the cannon in this manner. This would be the hallmark of the Mandarin dark cannons. So red would usually counter with c8 equals c8 plus 2. There are many other ways to counter, and this is one of them. And the main purpose would be to play c8 equals to 1. Prophylactic move, attacking from the center and retreating the cannon as planned. Attacking the horse, protecting the black horse, and attacking the central file. Now there were two variations: c2 equals to 5, check, moving the pawn to safety, and red will be prepared to attack. Now as can be seen again, this would be a very good potential sacrifice for black to play, because there was much material, there was much impulse space for the red pieces to be further developed and attacked. In the second variation, c2 equals to 8, which would be the main, what black would have was hoping for, but if red played correctly, it would still be to red's advantage, as is shown in this case. So for this section, it will be very, very, very important to try to steer away from congested positions or formations in the opening phase of your game. Now there was another example that was given in the book, and we shall go over it quickly. So in this example, a pawn opening was used. Black would use the golden hook cannons, or Jingou Pao, in this situation, whereby black would try to concentrate material and attack this file very early in the game. Now usually c2 equals to 3 for the thundering cannon is used, but if c8 equals to 3 were played, this would be called the golden hooked cannon, Jingou Pao. Red would usually counter in this manner, and black would try to concentrate even more material, attacking red's left flank in this situation. E3 plus 1 was played, so that red would not be tempted to play c2 plus 4. And as can be seen, at this point in time, red would have a very open position, a very open formation, where there will be many lines of development or many possibilities for red. On the other hand, black's material, especially his right flank, was very congested. Two cannons, 2 chariots, and 1 horse, with one of the chariots not even being developed. This, of course, at this point in time, red would enjoy a significant advantage in this situation. So at this point in time, red would enjoy an advantage in terms of space. So that is why this is another example of why an open position or a very spacious formation would be much more favorable. The final topic of discussion in today's video will be the 8th point that the Grandmaster mentioned. It will be the lesson on the importance of commanding the important intersections or lines in the opening phase. Now this would seem very obvious, but in Xiangqi, because the board is bigger, sometimes the important lines or intersections are not so readily visible. Now this, in the first example, there were 2 examples. In the first example, this situation was given, which is quite an orthodox and very commonly played variation in China or in Xiangqi today. At this point in time, it would be advocated for black to play a9 plus 1, and usually black would try to play a4 plus 5 to develop his chariot as a kingside chariot, and black would play a9 equals to 6 to command this very important file so early in the game. However, in the example, instead of playing a9 plus 1, there was an actual match whereby red tried to attack from the central file. However, red would have to pay dearly for this blatant mistake, because black defended with a4 plus 5 and chose to command a very important root file so early in the game. So red continued to attack, and red chose to charge his pawn across the river to prevent the red horse from developing from the central file. Now red applied a fork, a chariot fork to the black cannon and horse, but black was ready and chose to sacrifice his horse in this situation. Now, if red captured the black horse, red would be prepared to attack with h6 plus 4, forcing the cannon to retreat, trading material, and play c8 equals to 7. So after sacrificing material, black would have seized the initiative and was prepared to attack red's right flank, while the both of the red chariots were relatively closed, and it would take much effort for red to develop them and give up even more tempo in the process of doing so. So at this point in time, although black would have sacrificed material, the advantage would be obviously his. In the last example of the section, this position was given. It would be red's turn to move. The game started with red central cannon, and black countered with the left cannon blockade, and later continued with the deferred opposite direction cannons, which is one of the more volatile and aggressive counters. Now at this point in time, the focal point on the board would be this intersection by the horse. If red were able to advance his horse into attack, red would enjoy a significant advantage. So h7 plus 6 was recommended. Black would try to chase the horse away, and red simply captured the pawn without any fear. And in the match, black chose to trade pawns. Now, just for beginners, c8 equals to 3 to try to trade material would not be feasible, because red would simply capture the central cannon and be prepared to attempt an elbow horse check. So black cannot allow that, but this would result in the loss of the black cannon, and red would have gained material in this instance. So that is why r8 equals to 3 to traversing the chariot to capture the pawn would not be advised. So p7 plus 1 was played, pawns were traded, and red chose to trade material, trading his horse for the black cannon, and red continued to attack very aggressively with p7 plus 1. Now this will limit the space of the black horse, although it would result in the sacrifice of his elephant. The check was delivered, and black tried to shoo away the red pawn. The black cannon was captured, and the pawn advanced. Black retreated his horse, threatening trying to trade more material, which red did not allow. And black tried to focus his attention on the red pawn now, but red would not have anything to do with it, and chose to be aggressive by attacking the black horse. And once the black horse was moved, p7 equals to 6 was played. So red would have a significant advantage as in this situation. Black's right flank was congested. two red pieces were causing much congestion to two black pieces of equal value. The pawn would become a significant threat to black, whereby black central pawn would now be in trouble. The horse would not be able to do much at the moment, and once the pawn were able to attack from the central file, red would enjoy an even greater advantage. So this would be to red's advantage. A short review of the game. Commanding the focal point, which is a concept I think quite similar to international chess. After trading material, check, and red would gain more advantage as the pawn was allowed to cross the river. An advantage to red. Now, in this situation, we can see that red not only gained much space, his pieces were now also attacked and well positioned. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's video tutorial, and if you like my videos, please leave a comment and I'll try to do more in the near future. Doing one video takes me a few hours each time, but I think it's worth the effort. And I thank you again, and I wish that you have a nice week ahead.